Intrinsic value is time value. That's what we normally are doing here at the Dorian Trader. We're trading out of the money, which is all extrinsic value. It's all based on time. So if you're doing something out of money and nothing happens, all else is equal, nothing moves, it's going to expire worthless. If it's in the money, it's going to have some value. It doesn't mean you're going to win, but it's not going to be worthless because it has some tangible value. It's like buying a car and that's brand new, and then years later it's worth a significant amount less, but it's not worthless. Let's talk about how to trade the call spread, the bullish call spread. Now, when you're going over the basics of options, you are understanding that when you are the buyer of a call or call spread, that monies are coming out of your account and that you're bullish, you want it to go up. Right? And so if you were the buyer of a put spread, then you want that to go down, or a put. If you are the seller of a call or call spread, then you're bearish, you want that to go down. But you're receiving monies into your account if you're the seller. And that's what we are primarily here at the Dorian Trader. We're sellers. If you're a seller of a put or a put spread, you're bullish, monies are coming into your account. So it is several ways to be bullish using options, but it all comes down to really just two primary ways. Okay. And that's being a buyer on the call side or being the seller on the put side. And it's a lot of different combinations of buying and selling, but that is the 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 two primary ways and only ways if you break it down that simple, right? Either the buyer on the call side or the seller on the put side. When you're learning about options, most people start with the buying side. They start with buying calls because they can understand that because it translates the most from buying shares. When you buy shares, money's coming out of your account to purchase those shares, right? And you want it to go up, and that's intuitively comfortable for us because most of the time when we think about making money, we think about buying something and the price going up, and that's how we make money. That's how we benefit. Most people don't start buying puts because that's bearish and they don't understand it. It doesn't translate correctly. It's not intuitive. I'm buying something and I want it to go down. So most beginners start with the buying of a call. And when they do that, they don't realize that almost 100% of the time, they have less than a 50-50 shot if they are the buyer of a single call. Less than a 50-50 shot, almost 100% of the time, regardless of if you're buying something deep in the money where you'll see some people push on YouTube, or if you're buying something out of the money, which is even worse. So let me give you an example so that we can understand the call spread here, the buying of the call spread. If I buy this call here at a 70 delta, and I just say it's going to cost me $15, just for easy math, right? $15 for us to be able to make some money on this. Probabilities, option probabilities are all based on the time of expiration. That's how the math behind the Black-Scholes model is. It's based on expiration. It's a ton of things that can happen within the time you put on the trade into the time of expiration. So you can't factor in all those different scenarios, but you can factor in what's happening when you put it on and what's happening at expiration. So option probabilities are based on expiration. So if you are a beginner to options, you are not thinking about getting out of a trade before expiration. Most beginners don't think of that at all, right? They're thinking about they're going to buy and then they're going to hold until they make all the money they can dream of. But in reality, if you're going to hold a single option to expiration, you're going to have less than a 50-50 shot. I'm talking about being the buyer of the call right now, okay? Less than a 50-50 shot. And how does that work? Well, with the basis of options, you have to add the price that you paid to the strike that you purchased. So we paid $15 or 15 points at the 130. So if you add that to the 130, it's going to equal 145. So your break even, it's 145 at expiration. What is it trading at right now? It's trading at 140 right now. So that's less than a 50-50 shot. Even though we buy in this call in the money at a 70 delta. Trust me, it'd be the same thing if we were buying it at 100 delta or 1 delta. Okay? TastyTrade is saying you got a 40% chance of winning here. If we go to the 145 strike, and you'll see that this is saying a 45% chance. So for me, I would go by this delta and say I have a 45% chance of making something at expiration, making at least 1 cent, not losing. Okay. Now, if you understand that fact, then you would know that the odds are against you when you're the buyer. But that doesn't mean you're not going to never buy. But this is how a lot of beginners get turned on to options and then turned off from options, because they will buy that 130 strike, for example, and they'll see Nvidia go up, but they will still lose money because they don't understand you have to overcome what you paid, and you have time decay, and time decay is your enemy, it's your foe if you're the option buyer, because you need a big move if you are the option buyer. But as you learn with experience, you can do this trade, but as long as you get out when you have a decent profit, and here at the Dorian Trader, we think decent profit is 50%. Then you're going to have at least a coin flipping chance of winning. TastyTrade is telling you here that they probably of 50%, that if you paid $15, you're probably of getting 50% of that $15 that you paid is about 59, 60%. So once you hit that number, if you ring the register, that's going to increase your odds as the buyer. No one's teaching that to beginners. Just telling them to buy because it's easy and it's intuitive. Once again, do not want to hold the expiration, because the super majority of the time you're going to be on the losing side. Now, if you are the buyer of a spread, then this is where things can change a little bit depending on where you're buying at. If you're buying the spread in the money or out of the money. So since we've been talking about in the money right now, let's start by buying a spread in the money. So if I bought this spread, a 5-point wide spread in the money, what are the probabilities of us winning on this trade based on TastyTrade and the deltas? So TastyTrade, as you guys can see, immediately is already saying we got a probability of 59% of making something on this trade. We got a probability of making 59% on the trade, and we're the buyer. Most of the time, if you're not the buyer, most of the time, if you're the buyer, you can't have greater than a 50-50 shot. Most of the time. But if you're buying something in the money, a spread, then that's where you can kind of change those probabilities some for yourself. And you can wait the expiration if you wanted to on this scenario. Now, how's that work? Well, let's do easy math. Let's make this easy. Let's say we're buying this for $3. Well, if we add $3 to that 130, right? So plus $3, that's going to equal 133. So we need it to be above 133 at expiration. It's already above that right now, right? Because this is in the money. So because it's still time to go, it's something that's called extrinsic value and intrinsic value. Intrinsic value is tangible value. Okay, it's tangible value. Intrinsic value is time value. That's what we normally are doing here at the Dorian Trader. We're trading out of the money, which is all extrinsic value. It's all based on time. So if you're doing something out of money and nothing happens, all else is equal, nothing moves, it's going to expire worthless. If it's in the money, it's going to have some value. It doesn't mean you're going to win, but it's not going to be worthless because it has some tangible value. It's like buying a car and that's brand new, and then years later it's worth a significant amount less, but it's not worthless. Okay? It's not worthless. You can still get something for it if you try to sell it. Options that expire out of the money, they're worthless. You can't get anything for them. Now, because it has some extrinsic value in here, this right now, if you did this option, it has $200 of extrinsic value. This spread right here is worth $5, right?
So Brian,
Yes,
when you setting up this trade, isn't the extrinsic value always equal to the max profit?
absolutely, absolutely. I see what you're asking. Because that's only when you're doing something in the money like that, it's all extrinsic value. That's the only what you can make. So the
Right.
extrinsic value will be max profit. Absolutely.
Okay. So why
Yeah.
so why show? I mean, yeah, it's okay. I'm just wondering if extrinsic value when you're setting up the trade is same as the max profit.
Mhm.
Why do they even show this on the screen over here?
For here,
Yeah, because it's always going to be the same as max profit.
if it's in the money, but they have that's just a field, so they're just showing you, right? They're not going to
Oh,
just keep the field blank, but
yeah,
um,
yeah. I was just wondering why is the field so important that you have to show if it's going to be the same. But I guess it's
yeah,
okay.
it's definitely is. I could have did this, right? But most of the time I'm showing this extrinsic, but
Right.
I could have clicked on this as well.
Yeah.
And the reason why, you guys, is because in this example, it's in the money already, right? So it's your max profit is literally here. This is the most you can make if it stays above the 135. You're going to make the $200, but you can't make more than that because it's already in the money. So that this is how unique the kind of buying a spread in the money is, right? Because this is like selling a put. This is like selling a put spread in this aspect, because now you need it for you to lose. It has to drop, right? It has to drop for you to lose. If it doesn't drop enough, you're going to win on this call spread because you bought it in the money. It's like receiving extrinsic. It's like receiving premium. This $200 here that we were talking about. And so that's what makes your odds greater. Okay, that's what makes your odds greater. And so if we were going to do this out of the money, though, right? Let's just say we went here and we did it at the money, which is let's just say that's 145, and we even the 140. That's a little in the money right there, about 14 cents. But if we did that, you can see that our probabilities change. We no longer have a 59, 60% chance of winning. Now we have a 44% chance of winning at expiration. So I'm just going to do this for easy math again. I'm going to take this down to $2. And and so if we took this down to $2, you add the 2 to this again, right? That would equal 142. That's where you need it to be above at expiration before you can win. And so as you can see here, this is saying that it's a 50 delta. It's not really that's not really it's true here, but because this price is not really $2, it's 220, it's not going to be 50-50. Okay, as you can see there. Now if I went and did something a little out of the money like that, right, and then you can see now this is closer to $2, you'll see how this plays out, right? So we would have to be at the 143. It's trading at 140, just above 140. So our probabilities in these deltas here are saying 49, because the implied volatility is pretty good, but it's still less than 50-50. And the more you change that, the more you kind of buy something far out of the money, the lower your probabilities become at expiration. So in this example, we're paying 175, so it's about $2. So it's a little less than $2. So you need it to be somewhere around here, and you can see that those deltas around there are not very high. So the further you buy something out of the money, the less probabilities you have at expiration, but doesn't mean you can't win on the trade. Okay? Doesn't mean you can't win on the trade. Even TastyTrade is saying you got a 60% chance of making something on this trade, or 50% here, probability of 50. To imply volatility with this. So sometimes you guys see me say, like on micro strategies, or even something like NVIDIA we've done in the past, that we would buy a call spread far out of the money because we're taking a bet, we're taking a shot, and we're saying, okay, we think it's going a lot higher, and so we're trying to pay a little bit amount to bet and make a decent amount off a you know off a bet that is not a horrible bet, but it's not a great probabilistic bet at expiration, but it's a definitely a decent bet before expiration. And how can I say that? Well, we we talk about probability of touch being 2 times delta. Well, if I go out 32 days here, and let's say I decide I was going to buy this, well, the delta is saying 30 here, so time 2 is 60. So we got a 60% chance it can touch this 155 in 32 days. So it's more likely than not to touch this 155. And I know that seems like a long way away, 15 points, but it's more right now, before its earnings come out, it's more likely than not that it's going to touch this 155 within the next 32 days. Doesn't mean it's going to expire above that. It's only a 30% chance it will. So when I'm making these type of bets, I'm betting on a probability of touch. So when you're doing these trades, you want to understand the basics, and you also always want to understand your probability of success. And why is that the case? Yeah, the TastyTrade platform is giving you that, right? But you want to know how they're getting that number, and that's going to just further your learning, your basics, your understanding of the basics of options. And you can get that from being a buyer, and obviously you can get that from being the seller. But when you understand the probabilities of buying, then you can come to a conclusion where I think logically you'll come to the conclusion that you most likely want to be the primary option seller. But it's always a place and a time for being the buyer. But when you're being the buyer, you want to understand your probabilities and not think like a lot of beginners do, is that, okay, I can buy this 10 delta call, this single 10 delta call, and have an awesome chance of making money on whatever I do it on. And the reality is you have a very small chance of making anything. But if you understand, if you buy something in the money, you're going to increase your odds. And if you buy a spread in the money, you're going to increase your odds significantly, more than 50-50. It's understanding how to structure a trade to make it strategically the best you possibly can to be able to win.